Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's going to be about a minute until Zoom lets everybody into the room. There was a very high number of people registering for this, which uh, it's both a sad statement about how much is happening every day. Today was another very, very tough day from the headlines, at least. Um, and yet, I'm glad we're coming together in this space. Um, yeah, to hear about what's going on and to be together in a community. Um, I want to make sure, again, everybody knows that this call is being recorded. The recording of this, I said call, but the recording of this webinar will be posted on NJN's YouTube and on our website. It usually takes us about a day to do that, along with a transcript, so that if there are other people who you think would benefit from hearing this conversation, you can direct them to that. I also want to know, I want to make sure that all of you know that for the Q&A session, please, throughout the conversation, if you have a question you want to ask, put it in the Q&A, not in the chat, in the Q&A, and we will be looking at those questions throughout and make time at the end of the conversation to tackle as many of those as we can. Um, I also want to say that for those of you who are longtime joiners or part of NJN webinars, we have a new piece of functionality we're trying out today, or we will have available today, which is seamless translation into folks who would prefer to hear the conversation in Arabic or in Hebrew. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, there should be a button that says interpretation. If you click on that and then choose the language you want to hear the content in, you will hear a simultaneous translation of the main conversation. You can always switch back into the main conversation, which I think will be in English. Lastly, I want to, or almost lastly, but sort of housekeeping, I just want to express my gratitude to the panelists, to Annie, to whom I will turn this over to in a moment, for being a driving force into us having this conversation here. In terms of the co-sponsors, we have Chura, Satyam, Combatants for Peace, Rabbis for Human Rights, Partners for Progressive Israel, Mizrahi Civic Coalition, Small Emuni. Um, I uh, I take some strength from knowing that all of us can work together to bring these voices to host this conversation and to guide our community or communities into doing what we can to take action um, to address the terrible situation that is unfolding. With all of that, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Noam Shelef. I'm the Vice President of Communications for New Jewish Narrative, and uh, it's my pleasure to turn this over to Annie Kantar, who can moderate this conversation about what's happening in Gaza. Annie.
Thank you, Noam. Thank you. And thank you to New Jewish Narrative and to all of our co-sponsors who we'll again mention at the end, and also offer you links to their organizations and their campaigns at the end. للترجمة العربية اضغطوا زر أسفل الشاشة في قناة ולתרגום לעברית כמן, גם כן, יש כפתור שאפשר ללחוץ עליו למטה ותוכלו לקבל תרגום. So we're honored and grateful today to have as panelists Dr. TAREK LOUBANI, a medical doctor and founder of the Glia project, which provides medical aid and services to Gaza and elsewhere. He's currently joining us from Gaza, and today I think it's especially appropriate to say we are so very grateful to have you here in more ways than one. Here because you work in Nasser Hospital, TAREK, which was just bombed today, and several people were killed and injured among your colleagues. We're really glad to have you and thankful. Dr. Lee MORDECAI, an Israeli historian who is well known for his recent documentation of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, notably starvation. And KARAM AL-SHANTI, a native Gazan who works for the Red Cross and currently lives in Belgium. So there's a good deal of ignorance, willful and otherwise, about what is happening in Gaza, at least in part because it's so hard to take in. So, first, a huge thanks to all of you who've come here. I hope that what we hear today will help us somehow to hold for a few moments in a single vision, to paraphrase W.B. Yeats, reality and justice, as well as perhaps compassion. We'll have about 45 minutes or so for to hear from our panelists, followed by some Q&A at the end. So without further ado, Karam, most of your extended family, siblings, dear friends are in Gaza now, and you're in close touch with them. I'm wondering if you could give us a sense of where they are and what a typical day, if there is such thing, looks like for them lately.
Yeah, still within this moment, we are talking about very terrifying, horrible situation of all the people in Gaza. So, starting to talk about family at the moment, we are talking about an area in the west of Gaza City where almost 1 million of people are there. We're talking about wide of maximum 3 kilometers, and we are talking about a length of maximum 6 kilometers where all the people are stuck there. So we are hearing from the news that the Israeli army is going to capture Gaza. Gaza is captured already. So we're talking about all the east of Gaza evacuated, bombed, fully null people are there, but zero people are there. But within the western side, all the people are gathered within tents with the remaining destroyed buildings. If I talk personally, I'm talking about the brothers who are within tents because our houses have been fully destroyed. And so, as all other friends and all our family members, and a little bit outside Gaza City, we are talking about the middle of the Gaza Strip. We are talking about Deir al-Balah, Nusayrat, Al-Brej, and Al-Maghazi. Once again, it's like a separate area from the other parts of the Gaza Strip where people are being in like safe zones between brackets, but all the east is fully destroyed. And moving a little bit further, like West Khan Yunis, what we hear from the news in Mawasi area, that was a safe zone also. Today, just I heard the news that Mawasi was targeted and some people were killed there. So it's really a horrible situation. Those people are still asking what will happen if we are forced to leave. Would we survive? Would we stay here? And we're talking actually about very, very dying circumstances. You are talking about no water almost, no hospitals. Hospitals are being targeted, are being threatened. We are talking about lack of food, no gas, no fuel. If you want to move from Gaza City to the south of the Gaza Strip, namely Al Mawasi area in Khan Yunis, West Khan Yunis, you're talking about walking almost for 6 kilometers. And the other way all through the strip is controlled by the Israeli army. The western way, it's which is side the beach of the Gaza Strip. But again, somebody who is sick, who can he or she walks all this distance? And the transportation, cars cannot go along all this way because it's a destroyed way. Actually, it's not like a concrete way. No, it's fully destroyed. So you need to walk by your legs. And once again, when you pass the Gaza City and you want to go to the middle of the Gaza Strip, there is full control of the Israeli army there. So nobody is allowed there without an okay from the Israeli army to pass. If they want to kill somebody direct, they will kill. If they want to arrest somebody, they will arrest. So it's like a threat, fear, uncertainty, frustration, despair. Nobody knows what will happen. And everybody feels that we are being punished. We have no crime. We have not asked for this war, but actually our life has been destroyed and we are waiting for nothing.
Yes.
We are hearing from the news here and there, but nothing on the ground is touchable.
Thank you, Karam. Thank you very much. I remember even at the very beginning, your family carried
If
your
we,
mother a
sorry,
large
if we go,
way, a long
if we
way, because she was
if we
unable
go,
to walk.
Annie, to all what happened all through the last 2 years, we are talking about very touching events. So I
Yes.
still remember one of my brothers with his 8 family members, where my mother was staying with him. They were forced to walk all through this 6 kilometers, carrying her with a chair because cars were not allowed to pass there. And then they stayed for almost a year in a shop. So
Yes.
this shop for my brother in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of the Gaza Strip, and
Mm-hmm.
it's 4 meters with 8 meters long. So are we talking
Yes.
about 30 meters? So,
Yes.
and with the equipment of the optics shop, so they managed to sleep there with nothing. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
when they arrived there, they had nothing inside this shop. I saw a photo of my mother after 4 months. I couldn't believe it. Really, I couldn't believe it.
Thank you,
She
Karam.
died there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would like to, we will hear from Lee short in a few moments about what it's like to get around in the Gaza Strip and why it's so difficult and the reasons for that. Also where people are located more specifically and the degree of crowding. First, Tardik, maybe you could just begin by telling us where you weren't today, why that was lucky, and what a typical day at Nasser Hospital looks like when you are there. What kinds of injuries are you seeing? Why? Why these injuries? Is to what extent can you treat them?
Yeah, usually on Monday mornings is kind of when I leave the hospital for a little bit of a break. I haven't been in Nasser Hospital for a couple of days because I've been working on another project in northern Gaza at Al Ahli Hospital. The project I'm working on, if I can take a tiny digression, is because we are completely out of what are called external fixators. When people get normal breaks, they put on casts. When they're explosives or high velocity bullets, their bones shatter and they need much more complicated external fixation. If you've ever seen somebody walk around with a big pole on their arm connected into pins in their bones. So we worked on that project because we have not been allowed to have external fixators enter into Gaza for at least 2 months. We're completely out. We've been completely out for some time. And essentially, I became aware of this problem. I'm an emergency doctor, not an orthopedics doctor, because the patients were asking me to make sure if a patient dies that I take the hardware off of them so that they can use it in their own surgeries. At Nasser Hospital, I work in the emergency department, and so I see patients right as they come in. It has been the most devastating experience of my life, physically and emotionally. And I have been to multiple war zones. I was in the Ukraine as soon as the war started. I've been in Iraq. I've been in Venezuela and Colombia. I've been to basically every hot war zone area in the last, sort of 5 to 10 years. So I don't come to this fresh or new. I've been in every war in Gaza except for 2021 when I couldn't enter. Still, this is the worst experience of my life by a long shot. And the reason for that is that we see two big kinds of massacres. The Eid massacres began in late May, early June, and consist of basically seeing men, women, and children who are skin and bones out to go get some little bits of food, and they come into us shot up by either the GHF people or the Israelis. And the other kind is tent massacres. People are just in their tents when they have a bomb dropped either on them or on a neighbor. And because they're tents, it just tears all the way through. Since I got to Shifa, it has been attacked 6 times. So today's attack was not the first, not even by a long shot. It wasn't even the first missile attack on Shifa. There were 2 missile attacks on Shifa in the last 4 or 5 months. of which, of course, there were fatalities. In fact, the area where this attack happened was very close to the area where the last missile attack happened on Nasser. Sorry, Nasser, not Shifa, if I mentioned that. So Nasser has been under constant attack this entire time. And today, what happened, for your audience who may not have heard, is that there was what the Americans coined as the double tap attack. This is where a little missile hit, and that brought the attention of primary responders and rescuers, and then a big missile hit. And I wasn't there, but my colleagues tell me at least 100 to 150 people injured, 15 what they call black cases brought to them where it was evident that they would die, so they were left on the floor. And then about 30 to 50 cases that were injured in various degrees of moderate and severe, with very few that were only minorly injured.
Thank you, Tarek. That is, wow, it's a lot to take in, and it's so important to know, and to hear firsthand from you is really important. Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing there. To move back just to what Karam had mentioned, Lee, regarding his family and the forced migration from place to place and the so-called safe zones that aren't safe, as he pointed out. What kind of space is available for people to the places where they are migrating? Could you share with us?
Yes. Wait, so it's me or is it me? Should I speak?
Yes,
Karam?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Lee,
so
yeah, I was referring to you.
yeah, yes. So I'll just share this slide, which I think kind of shows how things look like currently in the Gaza Strip. So I hope you can see this. This is a map of the Gaza Strip as of a few days ago. This is all UN data over here. All the red, purple, darker areas are areas that are either militarized zones or under displacement orders, and the areas where Palestinians are allowed to be at without being shot on sight, basically, are the white areas. So this is the area of Gaza City, some of Deir al-Balah and the Mawasi over here. And as you can see, I mean, this is 86% of the Gaza Strip is within, I mean, is essentially out of bounds for Palestinians. The available space is essentially 50 square kilometers. So all these white areas are 50 out of 365 square kilometers. And the population density there is enormous, right? It's 42,000 people per square kilometer, which is a lot, obviously. So this is how things look like from the broader perspective.
Thank you. Thank you. And could you tell us a little bit about how that looks, Lee, when people are trying to get food, when they're trying to move from one place to another to get basic aid like flour?
Yeah, so I mean, what happened? I mean, we need to go a bit back to understand the situation here. So we had the second ceasefire, which started in January and continued into early March. And back then, there was a lot of aid that came into Gaza. But on March 2nd, Israel stopped all aid from coming in. So you had literally zero aid coming in during March, April, and the first half of so or May. Afterwards, when all the supplies in the Gaza Strip dwindled slowly over time, prices went up. I mean, at that point, Israel tried to push the so-called, I mean, the GHF, right? The so-called Gaza Humanitarian Fund, which is supposed to distribute food. Now, the places where this GHF distributes food, I mean, they have exactly 4 locations, 3 in the south of Gaza and the Israeli militarized zone, actually pretty close to Rafah, and another one in the center of the Gaza Strip. And if you want food, you are expected to go there. And this is what Tarek was talking about. Essentially thousands, probably tens of thousands of people daily. I could show images of this if this is of interest. People seek aid, that is to say, walk often long kilometers to these distribution points. On the way there and back, I mean, to there and back, they are often shot. I mean, it's very chaotic. I mean, there's like a lot of videos of this circulating online. Again, I can show a few of those if that is of interest. Um, but the point is that it's again it's chaotic both on the way there and back. The distribution itself is very chaotic, and the result is that essentially every day, dozens, if not hundreds of people are either killed or injured. As of today, the numbers, and this is we're all talking about the past almost 3.5 months. So 2,123 Palestinians were killed, I mean, aid seekers were killed seeking aid. So this is not like, these are, again, people who are, again, walking to get aid or walking back from aid distribution, and more than 15,000, so 15,615 were injured. And this is, again, over 3.5 months or so.
Based on the data you found so far, to the best of your knowledge, these people are killed by GHF or by the Israeli army, correct?
I mean, yes, there are a lot. I mean, everyone seems to agree on who's doing the killing, right? I mean, you have Israeli soldiers saying basically that, right? Then there are different ways in which they kill these people, and the rifle, guns, machine guns, and killing them from the air, killing them from boats, killing them with artillery. I mean, some of these are, you have videos of some of this and testimonials, again, by Israelis of the others. And you obviously also have the Palestinians themselves who are saying this, but you don't even have to trust them. You have the Israelis saying this. You have enough whistleblowers at this point, and you also have the GHF people, and who are essentially American contractors. And this is also something that needs to be put out there. We could talk a lot about the GHF if that is of interest.
Right. Okay, thanks. So Karam, what about your family? How are they finding food? How are they managing to eat?
It's like the other people in Gaza. So finding food is a dilemma. So we are talking about instead of 3 meals a day, they are cooking one time, and they are packing what is needed so as to make a fire first. And then when we are talking about food, it's not food. Actually, it's not food. So no fridges, no chicken, no milk, no yogurt, no eggs, no everything. They just depend on finding some cans from what our colleague has just said, that comes from ACE and then being sold in the black market. And then they are trying to make such a thing that everybody can eat at home. And in Gaza, they eat bread. So within our meals, bread is there, bread is missing. And you have heard the news about the price of flour, the price of sugar, the price of all items available in Gaza. So it's like fighting for eating. It's like struggling for buying something to be eaten. Some people still have got a salary where they can make use of money to buy. Yes, it's very expensive, but we can buy some of it to eat, to survive. I hear about other people who don't have nothing, who have actually nothing, and who are still waiting for a charity organization who is organizing such an eating for everybody, but it's like very minimum basic requirement of eating. So it's really a struggle. Until now, it's a struggle. Yeah, we have heard from the news that a lot of the trucks have been in and food is available. I have seen videos published by different medias, and I asked my family members, my brothers, my friends, and the answer, can we buy it? So all the aids that are in, like haphazardly, are spread without like a strategic distribution, without an organization that cares about the needs of people. And the people who are in power there, namely the Israeli army, are refusing all the organizations that have got experience to control all the aids and control the distribution. And of course, we have heard the response that they are Hamas. They are talking about UN agencies who have been working there for tens of years. Now they are corrupted and they are working with Hamas in Gaza.
You're saying that that's what people are saying about the UN.
This is what is said by the Israeli media and the Israeli army.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And Annie, if I can build on that just a little bit.
Yes.
So I'm on the ground right now. Over the last 3 months that I've been here, I've lost well over 20 kilos. And that's despite the fact that I am one of the most privileged people in this place. I have access to the food that's available. I have access to money to buy food. So Karam was saying that it's just not available. That's definitely true. However, one of the things that I think I want to clarify is that it's not like anything resembling enough food is coming in. This is not a logistical problem. It's not like, oh, the food is coming, it's just not making it to the right places. No. Gaza needs a minimum of 500 to 600 truckloads of food every single day, a minimum. That's bare minimum. And they're not receiving that. They're not even nearly receiving that. It's less than 100 truckloads at best on the very best day. And anything resembling 500 hasn't happened since the ceasefire. So that's an important point. The second thing is that the food that is arriving is not nutritious food. So for example, on almost any given day that I have access to food, I have access to basically carbohydrates. So almost every day during the worst periods I was able to eat a handful of rice, maybe some lentils. That's the kind of food I was able to eat. No vegetables, no fruit, no nutritional high-value foods. And our children, especially the pediatric patients, are suffering this by far the most. Everybody is growth stunted. Everybody is underweight. Everybody is nutritionally deficient. However, the children are suffering this by far the most, especially the ones who can't eat. One very last comment, which is that we see patients all the time who don't have access to formula. There's still not nearly enough formula here, even though finally a little bit of formula has been allowed in. And so parents are forced, like for kids, you can feed them whatever, and they can do whatever they can with it. Little babies who are not yet on solid food cannot do that. And so parents, I had a child, a little 8-month-old who arrived dead of malnutrition. She looked smaller than when my girl was 3 months old. And when I asked her parents what they were feeding her, they said, well, we didn't have any formula. She couldn't eat solid food yet. And so we had to basically make a lentil soup, grind it up, and then try to feed that to her. I mean, there's no child that can survive on that. It doesn't have what's needed. That's a story we see time and time and time again.
And if I can also join in and show some stuff.
Yes.
So I'll just clarify a few additional points following on what the Karam and Tarek were saying. So I mean before all this started, right? I mean Gaza had agricultural areas. As you can see, this map is from about a month ago. Only 1.5% of the cropland is still available for cultivation. Again, these very tiny green dots. I guess it's hard to see, but there are a few green dots here and here. More cropland is damaged but accessible. So there's almost no food that is being grown there. And as for, food consumption there, following what Talik was saying. So, this is like a weird graph, but bear with me. So each of these lines corresponds to one of the governorates in Gaza, right? It doesn't really matter for our purposes right now. Each of these areas over here is a food type, right? So sugar and cereals. So this would be like wheat and so on. These would be lentils, dairy, milk, meat, vegetables, fruits. This is how Gazans ate before the conflict, right? The number here corresponds to how many days a week were people eating this or that, right? So most people ate somewhere around like sugar, let's say 5 days a week, or cereals 7 days a week, and vegetables 7 days a week. Again, this is pre-conflict. On January 2025, just before the second ceasefire, this was the food consumption, so considerably less. And if we look at July, this is the last data that has been published. The data for August is going to be published in maybe like a week or two. This is how food looked like in July. So people ate and bread basically, right? 3 days or so a week, lentils, maybe 3 days a week, and more or less that's it, right? So no dairy, no meat, no vegetables, no fruit, very little oil, and basically no sugar. So this is, again, this is WFP data.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you for that. Yeah, and that also your graph very clearly brings home how things looked when the UN was, first of all, the shortage as a whole. There just isn't food coming in, as Tarek said, but also the difference between when there was a proper distribution and when the distribution was transferred to GHF, the distribution of whatever actually came in, comes in, which is not a lot. I'll also add that so far, there's the 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 Israeli government has not been able to provide any evidence of the fact that food was getting looted by Hamas and taken away by Hamas when the UN was controlling that. So, and I see you confirming that, Lee. Um, Going back to the situation in the hospitals, Tarek,
Annie, do you mind if I just,
so,
before we talk about that, add one more point, which is this is not a lack of aid. What Lee demonstrated very, very well is that Palestine was independent agriculturally in many important ways, or let's say self-sustaining. You know, there were still problems,
yeah,
but in terms of dairy, poultry, chicken, eggs, these things were being grown by Palestinians in reaction to some of what the Israelis had done. And because the Israelis had imposed this massive siege, what Dov Weisglass called the Gaza diet, he was Ehud Olmert's advisor in the mid-2000s, and he started this thing called the Gaza diet, in which he controlled the amount of calories that was being allowed per Palestinian in Gaza. And as a result, Palestinians reacted to that by really like making Gaza bloom with agriculture basically in every corner that could happen. For a number of years, Gaza had the largest organic farm in the world because, of course, fertilizers were completely cut off from there. So this is not a failure of the UN. What the Israelis did first wasn't take out the UN. What the Israelis did first was raise the land and remove Palestinians' ability to feed themselves. Then they took out the UN, and now they're taking out all other organizations.
thank you, Tarek, for that.
And probably, Annie, just only one last point over this topic. When we talk about we are not certain if the food is stolen by Hamas of so as we hear usually by the Israeli army spokesman. So I believe that they are monitoring and according what my friends and my family said, that they are monitoring every single meter in the Gaza Strip. So no, they know exactly which person is wanted, which person is Hamas affiliated, which person is UN affiliated, which person is normal people. So whenever somebody is approaching a truck and they are certain that this somebody is Hamas, for sure he is killed direct. This is what we hear from the people in Gaza. So I have asked this question for a lot of people. Are you sure that they are stealing? They said we cannot see them in the streets. And if they appear in the streets, they are dying.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, while there are so many things that I would like to ask, we have about 10 more minutes before we'll move to questions. Um, I'm wondering, Tardik, have you seen any, in terms of the medical needs that you're seeing now, do you anticipate seeing more or different kinds of certain medical injuries or needs as time goes on, especially in the context now of the forced migration, the deepening starvation? What do you expect to see in the hospital and to need?
Basically, all of our supplies are completely out at this point. We are completely unable to provide adequate care for patients. Every day is a sort of terrible game of bingo of what medical supplies are available for us to use. Some days I don't have gauze, some days I don't have syringes. I never have painkillers, ever. You know, my patients who are wounded never get any pain medication. It doesn't matter if it's a 2-year-old boy or if it's a 50-year-old woman, it just doesn't matter. So we are already out of almost all supply we can do. The Palestinians are so incredible and they have last as long as possible. We really see injuries that are war related. One of them is explosive injuries, the other one is gunshots, and then the third one is the miscellaneous kinds of starvation and metabolic related issues. So all of these just keep rotating. You know, it's again a bit of I wonder what we're going to see today. At the peak of what was happening with GHF, we would start. Usually, I sleep in the hospital usually. So we would start around 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. There'd be a mass casualty alarm, which is a repurposed fire alarm. We would head down to the emergency and we would start on all the GHF victims. And again, they don't do well because they start really, really malnourished. And really, the way you go into a trauma is the way you come out of a trauma. You don't have blood to give? Well, when you lose blood, you're going to be in trouble. You don't have protein? Well, how are you going to heal? The infection rates, the third category I talked about, related to starvation, the infection rates are virtually 100% on all the people who go to surgery. That's a crazy number. I've never seen a number like that. But they don't have protein. I've seen patients in the Gaza Strip with scurvy. Scurvy is a disease that belongs in history books and in Moby Dick. It doesn't belong in the modern world. And when I first saw it, it took me a moment to even recognize it because I couldn't believe it, you know? So what we're seeing is really a deepening of all the things we already know. More gunshot wounds, more explosive injuries, more post-treatment infections, more post-treatment malnutrition and other problems related.
Karam and Lee, I'm wondering, in the bit of time that we have, there are a lot of things that we hear about why it's happening in Gaza, why, the roots, the causes, a good deal of misinformation. Karam, I know that you are certainly paying attention to international news, but you also read Israeli news and notice what's being said in Israeli news. And you too, of course, Lee, I'm wondering if there's anything that either of you feel this is what people need to understand, this is what we keep hearing, and this just isn't true, or this is what is true.
A little bit back to before this war. So this is what the people of Gaza have been saying. We accepted that we are living in a very small, limited place in this world. We have accepted that 90% of us are for security reasons, banned from going outside from the two sides, from Israel, from Egypt. We have planted Gaza, we have built universities, we have built schools, we have created fun in Gaza, and we are satisfied. And we have no intention of war, and we want peace. But actually, we found that Israel is planning for this war. The Israeli government is planning for taking us outside this Gaza. So, what is our guilt? That they have destroyed our homes. Hamas is not in our homes, are not in our houses. They are banning our food. They are banning it from our education. They are killing. They are destroying everything in Gaza. So again, I'm following, as you have said, I'm following every day the Israeli news, and I'm following what the Israeli officials are saying to international agencies. So I follow BBC every day, and what the Israeli spokesman for the government and for the army are saying to the BBC. So till now, they are denying that there is a starvation in Gaza. Till now, commenting on what we have been saying about GSF and all the ACE, they are claiming that Hamas is killing the people who are going to get AIDS. I cannot believe it. You are killing people and you are hiding this for the people and you are laughing at the people. I cannot believe it. So, no Hamas in the streets. People are confirming this. We cannot see any Hamas member inside the street. Look at the doctor and what he has said inside the hospital today. I have been following all the people who have been killed inside the hospital. They are sheltering in the hospital and they are journalists. So nobody is wanted. And I believe if somebody is wanted, like a Hamas member who is active, immediately he will be within the headlines of the Israeli media. So I'm asking myself, what is the target there? Why they are bombarding the hospital? And it's not just only for one time. It's like a missile where the people are coming, and the people who are coming, journalists, and for sure first aid workers, and then immediately targeted. So they don't want life in Gaza. This is the result, and people are now fully aware of what's going on. So people are fully aware they are not punishing Hamas, but they are punishing us. They don't want anybody inside Gaza to stay there within a normal life.
You.
If I can add, so I would answer that question in a different way. I mean, fundamentally, my understanding, and I've been also following international media, but also reports by different organizations, UN, international aid organizations, human rights organizations, and so on. My impression is that media, that is to speak, I mean, that is to say, mainstream media, both in the global West and in the and in Israel, just doesn't show most of what's happening, right? So yes, you do get some coverage, but you don't get like the important stories or the syntheses that would help you understand what's actually going on. I'm not sure how many people know this. I mean, it should be very common knowledge, but I don't think it is. Until now, 22 months into this, international journalists cannot enter the Gaza Strip, right? There are no international journalists in the Gaza Strip. There have not been any international journalists in the Gaza Strip, except for one case, one journalist, CNN journalist, who was there for like half a day, and I think she was in Nasser Hospital in the south. Yeah, and that was not, she was not supposed to be there. She somehow got smuggled in. It's like a different story. Yeah, but Israel is not allowing these people in. And yes, they sometimes say that it's for their protection, which I don't think that's a convincing argument by any standard, because during the ceasefire, I mean, the Gaza Strip was much safer and no international journalists were allowed in either, right? So there's like a different issue here. Now, the other part of the story, which is also the part that we need to say, is that the journalists who are reporting from Gaza are Gazan journalists. That is to say, local Palestinians who just are reporting about whatever they see around themselves. And as for demographics, I mean, if you look at occupations, I mean, different occupations of people, of all the occupations that I know, media workers and journalists have suffered the highest death toll percentage-wise compared to anything else. Right, so about a year ago, there were about 10% of media workers and journalists who have been killed. So far, and obviously the number increased from then. We're now talking about, depending on how you want to define this, but anywhere between 200 and 300 journalists and media workers have been killed. And as someone who collects information every day, I cannot help but notice the decrease in quantity and quality of information coming from Gaza, because they're just killing all the journalists who are reporting about all this, right? I think a good example that drew somewhat more attention was Nasser Sharif, who was killed maybe 2 weeks ago, with 5 other colleagues who drew less attention. But once you turn off like voice after voice after voice, and you turn them off by killing them, but you can also intimidate others. You can get rid of others by allowing them or maybe pushing them outside the Gaza Strip. And there are like specific names that I can name of people who have left the Gaza Strip just because they couldn't stand it anymore. And the result of all of this is that currently, as Karam was saying earlier, I mean, if you look at Eastern Gaza is being destroyed, Eastern Gaza City, that is being destroyed right now, and there's like no one on the ground who's covering this, right? So you have like videos from afar, you have like IDF soldiers who are saying that this is what's going on there, but you don't have anyone on the ground who would show you like footage, pictures, the way you would have maybe like half a year ago or a year ago. That's just like not that. I mean, that information is no longer available for us.
You know, Dr. Lee, I saw already Fox News in Gaza a month ago, and Fox News were with the Israeli army. And after they were in Rafah and Khan Yunis, they were hosted by Mr. Netanyahu office. And they thanked them very much for taking full coverage of the Gaza Strip. So unfortunately, when we hear safe zone, look at this very nice title, safe zone. And people here in Europe are asking me, what is the safe zone? So they think about villas, they think about houses, they think about restaurants, they think about cafes. They do not think about tents.
And,
It's
and,
it's
and
it's fully crazy. Actually, fully crazy brainwashing. Yeah.
And what Karam was saying now, so yes, I mean you have journalists who are inside the Gaza Strip, yes, but these people go in with the IDF spokesperson to specific places, see specific things, speak to specific soldiers. They're not they are not let go to just like look around, talk to people, understand their stories, see what's going on. No, it's a very manicured experience that these people are being given. I mean, I've spoken to some of these people. I mean, they're usually based in Israel and they get like calls every once in a while. Oh, you want to come and see this or that within the Gaza Strip, and they usually go. But it's not like real journalism, right? They're embedded within the IDF military, and this is also the same for Israeli journalists, by the way.
I'd like to say that I know that probably everyone who is here is looking for more information. That's one of the reasons that you came. And I personally don't know, despite the paucity of good journalism and the ability for journalists to access information, I found Haaretz very important, and the Haaretz in English, Nir Chasson, has really been consistently reporting on what's happening. It's one of the few places we can get the information. Many of the organizations whose links I will provide later are also providing important information, including New Jewish Narrative. And there, of course, is also 972 magazine. In Hebrew, there's Sicha Mekomit, Yuval Abraham's journalism as well. Those are just a few places where, if for people who want to continue their learning, can look for more information. Thank you all. It looks like Noam is ready to maybe take a few questions. I'm going to, in the meantime, post in the Q&A the links to these organizations, and then I want to, of course, thank everybody afterwards. Noam.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. Thank you to all of you. This has been the conversation I had both hoped and feared it would be. The, the these are things that are difficult to hear, and yet we must, and we need to find a way to cope with it. And I'm seeing a lot of that sort of in the questions that have been coming in, and so I want to. I'm not going to read off sort of individual questions so much as point out some of the themes and ask you to respond on that. Um, I think there have been a number of questions that have gone into the shortages specifically of medical equipment and other medical needs. Um, and so I want to ask about that. I want to ask, we heard some specifics of what is missing, but I think Tarek, you're the best to comment about this. There's a desire to help. There's a recognition that doctors who are and other first responders who are in roles like yours need to be emotionally to take care of themselves and physically, and also take care of their patients. And there's a desire to see what our communities can do to make things better, ways to get equipment or blood or whatever may be needed in. I will tell you from a story of New Jewish Narrative. We launched this summer a campaign to help a health clinic in Gaza get up and running, and the response was overwhelming from our own supporters to sort of say like, okay, here's some money to help make this happen, and this particular clinic is up and running, but they still have to deal with the shortage in medical materials within Gaza. So there's this strong desire to figure out what can we do to help as individuals, as communities, as organizations. And I'd love to turn that question, I think, first to Rek, and then also to Karam and Lee, if you have other things to add.
Thank you so much, Noam. I recognize that, this is an audience largely of people either of Jewish background or sort of part of the Jewish culture. And so I recognize what I'm going to say is going to be difficult. This is not a humanitarian problem as such. This is not a logistic problem as such. There is an active effort to exterminate at this point all Palestinians that's happening at multiple levels of Israeli society, at the army, at the level of the military, and at the level of the political echelons. So the reaction can't be purely logistical or humanitarian. It's not sufficient for us to say, how do we get food in or how do we get medication in? These things are essential. I mean, I'm a doctor, I'm here, I'm doctoring, obviously I believe in humanitarian aid. However, fundamentally, what we have to do is we have to understand and support the things that are going to shut down the Israelis' ability, the Israelis writ large, ability to carry out this particular military attack. And those are at three levels: at the military level, at the economic level, and at the political level. At the military level, there's nothing any of us can really do. I would say that the vast majority of your audience probably looks at the Palestinian armed resistance as something that's bad. Very few Palestinians look at it that way. The armed resistance is one of the only things that stops the Israelis from complete domination and extermination in Palestine right now. It's virtually the only force available right now to alter the equations that the Israelis make. So I think that insofar as we can accept over time the fact that Palestinians have the right to that armed resistance, your audience should come to terms with that. The economic resistance really happens at the level of boycott, divestment, and sanctions. And that's something that we also have been working really hard on at every level of society, both outside Israel, in all parts of the world, and even to some extent inside Israel. And then the third one is some kind of political resistance, which we actually see taking shape very, very well. And that political resistance to what's happening in Israel involves the things that Israelis and the Jewish community always looked at as being really troubling. Like, for example, Israel has to be politically isolated. That is a precondition to them feeling like they have to end this thing. And so that type of political isolation involves levering all of the institutions we believe in, institutions of international humanitarian law, institutions like the United Nations, institutions like the World Health Organization, so that they can actually do something. So I think we can separate this out into two things: the instant response. We have to stop the immediate suffering of Palestinians, and also the long-term response. We have to end this war, and we have to make sure that Israel is not able to continue it.
Lee or Karam, is there anything that you would want to add to that?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on. I'll go after you.
Just if I can add another comment of what Dr. Tariq has said. I have asked a lot of friends in Gaza. I'm going into a webinar, and the listeners are Israeli community, Jewish community. What can I say? What do you want from them? Look at this answer. I write it down just to support what Dr. Tariq has said. Are you waiting to see more blood? Are you enjoying watching us dying? Are you enjoying the killing of children? Please do your best to stop this war. And when we are talking about equipment, food, medical help, I'm sure if there is a stop for the war, this will be end easily and smoothly. But the priority is stop the killing, stop the bloodshed. This is very important. Thank you.
And thanks to both Tarek and Kaim. I mean, I'll take in a different direction. I would point out to maybe I would have 3 points here. One is the lack of accountability. The lack of accountability, even in things that are obviously wrong. I mean, maybe a good example would be, I mean, you can look at this either at the macro level, the country level, the political level, or at individual levels, I mean, individual event levels. I mean, maybe a good example here would be the killing of 15 Palestinian Red Crescent and first responders back in March 2025. This is like the Rafah Tel al-Sultan massacre. I mean, there was like an almost complete lack of accountability within Israel for that. I mean, obviously internationally as well. Israel so far is still being sold weapons. I mean, the international community is still doing that. Again, there's a lack of accountability to all of this. I would point out the destruction. I mean, if anyone is in doubt about what is actually going on and what is the purpose of this, I will again share a few images. And here is data that we took again from the United Nations. I hope you can see this. This shows the Gaza Strip and shows the amount of buildings that are being damaged or destroyed at a specific moment. This is the latest data we have, early July 2025. And you can see that Rafah over here and Khan Yunis over here are essentially destroyed. I'll show images in a second, satellite imagery. But also northern Gaza, I mean, the southeastern parts of the Gaza Strip. I mean, you can see the numbers, right? 78% of buildings in Gaza are damaged or destroyed, 41% completely destroyed. This is how it looks like if you want to look at satellite imagery, right? So this is Rafah in early 2025, right? This is the border between the Gaza Strip over here and Egypt over here in the south, the Philadelphia corridor, for those who know that. And you could just jump on and see how all this is being destroyed, right? This is May 2025. The rest has been destroyed afterwards, but this is the imagery that I got. So again, early 2025, late 2025, sorry, May 2025. And the same thing here, January 2025, here, the Philadelphia corridor is just over here. You can see how it's all being grazed. This is not, I don't think this is a war. This is not a war that you fight against an enemy. Again, you just like destroying the entire area. Yeah, and I think the last point I would want to make in this context is awareness of the system that we live in, the international system that we were brought to trust, to think that it works for us. And at this point, I think that the victims are the Palestinians, and we obviously need to do whatever is necessary to help them. But it is also important for all of us to understand that this is not going to go away. I mean, this system is being dismantled as we speak. Gaza is just a catalyst for that process. And whatever we see here in Gaza, this is not going to be the last time we see this kind of massive destruction, starvation. I mean, this is all legitimate now, right? Because this has been done, and the international community de facto has not really done all that much to stop it, right? So I think what Gaza tells us all is that the world in which we live in today and in the future, foreseeable future, is far less safe than the world we thought we lived in before October 7th.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was quite powerful. We are almost at time, but I feel compelled to sort of put out another theme for the group to answer. And I want to start with a sort of personal, I want to start by putting myself in there because that's how I'm channeling this. And you know, I think when I think back about some of the political analysis that TAREK offered about 10 minutes ago, you know, some of his language, you know, to identify myself, I was, you know, an Israeli American, a lot of my childhood in Israel, but most of my life in the United States. You know, some of that framing and some of that language, you know, of resistance was difficult to hear, you know, as we acknowledge the way that we are struggling to comprehend how terrible the reality is on the ground. You know, some of the political discourse is hard, and I flashed back, you know, 25 years ago when I was in college to being in Jewish Palestinian dialogue organizations, and I remember speaking with a Palestinian man my age, you know, at some point talked about wanting to have a Palestinian state and a Palestinian army, and I looked at him, I said, "What do you need an army for?" And he said, "Well, why do you need an army?" And you know, then that was the moment for me. It dawned, well, I need to, you know, be protected, and so does everybody else in the world. Need to find a way to have safety. And so, while the terminology of resistance is still very difficult to me, you know, I take the point personally that Palestinian society needs to have a way to defend itself and their people, and they have been under, you know, we are seeing Gaza be dismantled now. And we've seen a lot transpire over the years of occupation, and we're not going to get into all of that. All of this is a preamble to the question, which is that, that there have been a number of questions along the theme of how do we convince people who aren't seeing it the way we're seeing it. And I think that's been a part of the conversation already. But I think if we can go around and sort of limit it to a minute, people are asking for, what are information, where can I get information? Where can I get resources? How can I frame, this is maybe my own addition, how can I frame what it is that I have to say in order to get people to hear it? Because I think part of human nature is to have trouble hearing the things that we have trouble acknowledging. Um, and so I think if we can do just in a quick go around and maybe we'll do in the same order and then ask Annie to chime in as well. Um, but two or three individuals or news outlets or other resources out there that you look to that people here on this webinar would follow up and check out for themselves to help them get the information they need or whatever other resources they need to get people to understand what's happening. And Tarek, I go with you first.
Oh boy. Thank you so much for acknowledging your discomfort, Noam, as well. I recognize that going into my comments, so I appreciate you normalizing that. In terms of the resources, I think for this particular audience, the main resource that I would suggest is Mondo Weiss. To me, that seems to be a good resource that has a good touch with both the Jewish community and what's happening on the ground with Palestinians. And so I think that's probably the best sort of in-between space. For people who are more interested in sources that are more directly Palestinian, I understand that maybe this audience might not be necessarily into that. It would be other resources like Electronic Intifada or Middle East Eye or something like that. But I think for most of your audience, very likely Mondo Weiss is a good place to look at and to start reading, because they have just such clarity about so many of these issues, and they truly do approach it from a Jewish communitarian lens.
All right, let's go in the same order as last time. So, Karam.
Pardon?
Yeah, sorry. So I would once again recommend Haaretz because I usually follow what is being said there, and I follow the writers who are trying to be so much as they can objective, and I have met many of them outside and inside as well. As far as I know, it's available, and a little bit it's found by other newspapers and other Israeli media as well.
And on my side, I would recommend Dropsite News, which was put together. I mean, this is like a new news outlet put together by Jeremy Scahill from The Intercept, for those who know him. Yeah, and I think that over the past, let's say, few months, several months, they have good, maybe even very good sources within the Gaza Strip who provide them with information anonymously. They provide like a different take on a lot of stories that are often either not covered or not covered enough by standard media outlets. And so I would definitely check them out. And I would also plug in some of my own work. So part of what I do, I mean, I also write for Local Call, but there's like, I mean, all this has been part of like a long time, a long project that turned into a long report for me since, I mean, almost the beginning of all this. I started this in December 2023. You can go and read the report, which is a long form report. There's also other types of content there. I'm not going to speak too much about this. But it provides a lot of information, all heavily sourced information. And the main report has about 4,000 sources in it. And you can just like check the footnotes, look at everything you want, understand like the different debates, stories, and that kind of stuff.
Annie.
So, I think that maybe the best way to close is really, again, to share maybe the greatest resource that we have right here, in addition to our panelists, which are the people and organizations who have co-sponsored, where regardless of where a person stands ideologically or how difficult it is to take in, I think that each organization has a take on what's happening and has committed themselves to trying to make a difference. And it's worth exploring these different organizations and finding what we connect to. I would suggest, so first I would just like to thank you, New Jewish Narrative, for hosting this event. And Glia, which is Tarek's organization, highly recommended. They have a campaign. You can click into their link right there and learn more and give. Satyam's Their Hunger is Ours campaign, which is they're in their 71st day of a hunger strike. Between among Palestinians, Israelis, and internationals, in solidarity with the people in Gaza, as well as the Israeli hostages there. We have Combatants for Peace, the Mizrahi Civic Collective, Tu'ah, Rabbis for Human Rights, Partners for a Progressive Israel. The Small Emuni, even though there aren't official co-sponsors, have been people. The good people there have also been helpful. And
Yeah, I want to say
and
Small
I just
Amuni
want
did.
to. What was that, Noah?
Got to say Small Amuni did co-sponsor. They are
They did?
co-sponsors. Yes. Um,
Oh yeah. Okay, you must have spoken to
sorry.
someone different than I did then. Okay, well, good. I'm glad that they are. Um, and just especially, I want to thank everyone here for coming and for caring and for taking the time to learn and to educate ourselves and to bear witness, if only from through a screen and from far away. So thank you all. And thank you
Yeah.
especially to Tarek, Kardam, and Lee for giving of your time and for giving so much of yourselves every day for what matters, for our shared humanity.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. This will be the end. May this war come to an end soon, and
Amen.
sanity to life return.
Amen.